Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to North Shore Live, Cooper's Corner. We're live this evening, as you read the for our front page. It is December the 19th. And before I forget, Merry Christmas to all and Happy Holidays to all. I know everybody is moving around quickly to purchase last-minute gifts. Just be careful, be watchful, and be courteous to other drivers and people in stores and whatever. So far, it's been pretty good, and not too much of a rush or, the fact that Christmas is just right around the corner. What can I say? So this is Wednesday, and come Tuesday, and I hope there's no snow. But Santa, we will gladly acknowledge Santa. So again, let me just say Merry Christmas to all, Happy Holidays. I hope everybody's families are well, healthy, and happy, and that you are able to sit to eat together and pray together and love together. And so with that, let me introduce to you my guest for this evening, a gentleman I've never met before, but does hold quite an important position in the Navy League, because I've never heard of the Navy League before. So we're going to get that moving on the program. This is Ted Rock, and he is CWO.
CWO, Chief Warrant Officer.
Chief Warrant Officer.
For. Retired.
Retired, U.S. retired.
Yeah.
And we welcome you, and he's the area president here in Lake County. We welcome you to the program.
Thank you.
And his lovely wife, Valerie, is sitting. She's part of our audience this evening. We are so happy that he brought you, really. We are. And we're going to talk about the Navy League. And strange, pardon me, I have a son in the Navy. My husband was Navy Air Force. My other son is Army, but I've not heard of the Navy League. So, Ted, please explain to us, this is strictly watercraft and those that serve on watercraft?
We talk about in terms of sea service.
Okay.
And the sea services is Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, Merchant Marine. And we support all of those. We have reasons to think, and they're all very important in the security of the seas, of the waterways.
Sure. Around the world.
We like to talk about 70% of the surface of the world is water. 80% of the people that live in the globe are within 10 miles of one of those bodies of water. And 90% of all the cargo that we consume travels by some kind of ship from place to place.
That's an interesting point. I didn't know that. I thought it's usually air cargo or train or truck or whatever.
Too expensive. Well, look, I mean, domestically it is, but think about all the stuff we get from China and from other countries and all the trade going on. There are websites that show the sea lanes, and they do it time lapse at night, and so it's like just little slivers of water, and the ocean looks like a highway. Because the closest point, but the closest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Absolutely.
And so they all try to go through that same straight line. And so when there's a narrowing, like the Straits of Gibraltar or any of those straits like that, it's a bright line going through that spot.
Well, they're all coming to go through.
And there's thousands and thousands of ships.
So you gave me a bit of history when we were in the green room. Maybe you could go over that.
First of all, let me tell you a little bit about the mission, what we do. The Navy League was formed with the mission to support the sea services. And we do that two ways. One is we lobby our Congress people and we talk to them. We go see them, tell them what's going on, so that they will support legislation that makes the sea services stronger. We try to educate the public. We try to generate times when the civilian population can meet the military and they can talk with each other and learn what's going on.
Okay.
You talk about Navy League being a secret. Great Lakes is a secret to Lake County.
Is that incredible?
It is incredible, and our job is to help them get the word out about how important the Navy base is to Lake County, and how big of an employer they are. It's just humongous, and so that's twofold. We educate the public and we lobby Congress. The third thing is we do youth programs. We have Sea Cadets across the country, and we have Naval Junior ROTC units that we support.
And how do you secure those youngsters for your
Sea
mission?
Cadets?
Yeah, how do you do that? In the
Just like
school?
any other, they're like Boy Scouts, but they have a nautical theme. They wear Navy uniforms. They do Navy stuff. The Navy is very good about supporting. They let them go to school in the summertime on the Navy bases.
Wow.
They let them go aboard ship on occasion. They have a boot camp. At boot camp, it's not 8 weeks, it's 2, but maybe it's one or 2. But they go through the ritual of being in a boot camp. And they recruit for that just like any other Boy Scout troop or any other youth organization would recruit from their friends. And
Are there any credits that are given through school or?
no. But if they go through Sea Cadets for a significant period of time and do well, and then they join the Navy, although it's not a recruiting tool, a lot of kids that do Sea Cadets do actually join, but that's not the purpose. But if they do well in the Sea Cadets, they can get another stripe or 2 when they graduate from boot camp.
Wow. And when we were talking about the amount of people, and you mentioned to me that these are not, this is very important, these are not military people. These are civilians.
Right.
You can't,
Navy League.
that you do not recruit military personnel.
That's right. We are civilians. Many of us are ex-Navy, but you don't have to be ex-Navy to be part of Navy League. If you care about your goods being safely delivered, and if you care about the safety of the country, and then you can be part of the Navy League and be part of our activities.
Now, do you have regular meetings, or where do you join, or what?
We do. We have regular meetings. We're kind of weird, and it's been this way for, Lake County. Each council is different. Okay. Lake County happens to have a breakfast meeting at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, the last Saturday of the month typically. And we meet at the Chiefs Goat Locker. Nobody knows what that is, but it's like a Chiefs Club at Great Lakes. And it's an independent thing sitting out there in Forestall Village. And they're nice enough that the Chiefs come in and fix our breakfast.
Wow.
They also fix breakfast for themselves while they're doing it, so they have a breakfast time for them in the other part of the building, and then we pay them to do this.
Okay.
And we collect a little bit from our people to pay for the breakfast. So pretty much every fourth Saturday. 8 o'clock.
Saturday.
Yeah, anybody can come.
Okay.
It's on Great Lakes Drive in Forestall Village. Turn at the golf course and go south.
Yeah, go south that way. All right. If people would like to connect with you, since you don't have to be military, how would they do that? How do they connect with you?
There's a couple ways. One is to go to our website, which is Lake County NLUS. And that's Navy League of the United States. LakeCountyNLUS.org is our website address. My email address is ted.rock, R-O-C-K, @comcast.net.
Okay.
If you want to join, the National Navy League website has a place to join. And you type in join.navyleague.org.
And you said this is nationwide or international?
It is. We have about 40,000 members, U.S. and domestic and international. We have chapters all over the world, councils all over the world, and and it is a pretty big organization. And we're always trying to get more people. In fact, it's down a little bit right now because, like many other organizations like us, they have trouble recruiting these days.
Are women a mainstay or?
Absolutely, yeah. Some of our strongest people are our female representatives.
Women, yeah.
Sure.
And so the Navy League, we didn't get into what they do, but let me just read the mission statement that you've got here, and maybe that will give everybody an idea of just what is accomplished by the Navy League. So, the mission and purpose statement. And forgive me for reading, but this is fresh off the presses. Since its founding in 1902, with the enthusiastic support of former President Theodore Roosevelt, the Navy League has promoted the need for strength in American sea power. As Assistant Secretary of the Navy and recipient of both the Nobel Peace Prize and Congressional Medal of Honor, Roosevelt fully understood that superior sea power sustains peace and is a deterrent to war. The Navy League has grown from these roots to become the foremost citizens organization to serve, support, and stand with all U.S. sea services. The Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and U.S. flag merchant marine. Decades and decades of the Navy League has demonstrated its leadership in advocating superior sea power to safeguard U.S. national security, protect American economic interests, and ensure freedom of the sea. The Navy League has 3 missions: to enhance the morale of active duty personnel and their families, to inform Congress and the American public on the importance of strong sea service, and to support youth through programs such as Naval Sea Cadet Corps, Junior ROTC, and Young Marines that expose young people to the values of our sea service. That's more than a mouthful, and that takes on a lot, an enormous amount. But of course, you're dealing with the sea. You're dealing with
absolutely. It's a big issue.
Wow.
And in Lake County, we primarily do awards to support the sea service. If they ask us to do something else, we certainly try to do our best. But we do Sailor of the Quarter awards for 9 of the major commands at Great Lakes. And so that means we do 36 of those a year if they tell us they're having the occasion, and then we show up. We give them replica Lone Sailor statues as an award, and we raise money to pay for that. On January the 26th, we're having our annual meeting and Sailor of the Year Awards banquet. We'll be presenting 36 of those awards to the 36 most outstanding sailors that have been identified at Great Lakes.
Just terrific. Now, your program that you mentioned to me before about the Christmas ship. Thank you, Valerie. That was good.
one of our councils, Chicago, has an event they call the Christmas Tree Ship. And the story of this is that in 1880 or thereabouts, there was a Captain Schuneman that had a schooner that went up and down Lake Michigan delivering goods, as schooners did in those days. They would buy in one place and sell in the next, and that's how they made a living. Well, in this area, you have to stop about November, December because the lake freezes over.
Sure. Yeah.
So Captain Schuneman always made his last trip about Christmas time, the few weeks before that, and he would go up to northern Michigan and he would pick up Christmas trees and load up his ship with all the Christmas trees he could, come down to Chicago, sail into Chicago River, and park by Dearborn Avenue, and he would set up shops selling Christmas trees. But Captain Schuneman always took 10% and gave them away to needy families. And he did it for many years, and he got nickname of Christmas Tree Captain and things like that. And in 1888, Captain Schuneman hit some bad weather up around Two Rivers, Wisconsin. His ship hit some rocks and knocked a hole in the bottom of the ship, and it sunk, and he passed away in the shipwreck. 18 years ago, the Chicago Council of Navy League decided to reenact that. And we just did it 2 weeks ago. We do it the first Friday of December every year. And it's become quite a big deal. And they'll bring 1,200 Christmas trees, and they get the Coast Guard cutter Mackinac to go up and pick up these Christmas trees and sail them down to Chicago. And they do their work along the way. They tend buoys and whatever the Coast Guard does. But the Coast Guard has been very generous about providing that cutter during this period of time. And at the event at the Chicago Yacht Club on December 1st, I believe, several Coast Guard people were there, and Yacht Club people and Merchant Marine. They were all in uniform. It was a beautiful, beautiful event.
Wow.
And that's what we do to... and then the following day, they pull the Christmas trees off the ship and hand them out to needy families. And we get to see cadets and these other young people
nice.
involved in moving those Christmas trees and handing them out.
That's terrific.
Yep.
That's terrific. And so the Navy League is its formation. Has there been any other organization, any other military organization that is as vibrant as the Navy League? I mean, does the Air Force have something, or does the Army have something?
I do not know about an Army League or an Air Force League. There is a Marine League, Marine Corps League.
Okay.
But those are, and it's a great organization. Don't let me take it wrong.
No.
But in order to be in the Marine Corps League, you have to be a former Marine.
You have to be a Marine.
And that's more of a veteran group than we are.
Okay.
We pride ourselves in being not veteran, and we don't have to. We're civilians, and we just work to support the Navy. In fact, in our charter, we cannot take as a member anybody that's on active duty in the Navy, because we quite honestly lobby, and we like to have that independence so that we can do that without looking like like we're after something for ourselves. And just like Navy people, military people cannot go directly to Congress. They're not supposed to do that. Yeah. Can I talk about the formation?
Oh, absolutely.
That's a great story.
Absolutely. Please
the
do.
Navy League is 116 years old. We were formed in 1902, and we were formed primarily because President Theodore Roosevelt wanted to have this organization in place. He had been the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, and he knew how important this was, and he was trying to get the word out to other people, and he was having trouble doing it by himself, so he got a bunch of his friends and influential people and decided to form this organization. And it has grown from that point on. Theodore Roosevelt did a lot during his administration in strengthening the military, and I like to tell the story about the Great White Fleet.
Please do.
Probably many of the people here have heard of that, but one of you hadn't.
Yes.
Anyway, in 1907, Theodore Roosevelt commissioned 17 battleships, and before they went out, they painted them white. The only time they ever did that. And they did a around-the-world cruise that took them 2 years. And they just went from port to port to port to port to show the people around the world how friendly we are and how powerful we are. In my mind, the Navy is not a war machine. We're a weapon for peace. We'd rather not shoot those guns. We would rather just have everything be calm.
Well, we all hope so.
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
Okay.
Doesn't always happen that way, but
True.
That's our goal.
So this fleet traveled around the world.
Yes.
Anyone that we should have knowledge of who, made some kind of contact with us at that point? Any emperor or king?
Oh, absolutely. All over the world.
Yeah.
They all knew we were coming,
Okay.
and that's what it was all about. Oh, yeah. They had celebrations and parties, and every country we went to opened us with
doors. Okay.
with open arms.
And so,
in fact, that still exists today. By the way,
do they do that?
I did I did several years on sea duty, as most of us career Navy people did. But every time you go into port, you all the dignitaries show up, and our senior people meet with them, and they exchange ideas, and it's quite a remarkable thing. Yeah.
Now, how many sailors would you say are on each one of these ships that go out? I know.
Depends on the size of the ship.
Wow.
There are, I'm going to guess, 450 ships now.
Wow.
in the Navy. They talk about getting a 500 ship fleet, and we talked to our congressman about that. And we would like to get to that point, but it takes a lot to do that. The largest ships are, of course, aircraft carriers. The big ones now, the big nuclear carriers, are 6,000 people.
Small city.
It's a small city, yeah. And I did my sea time on aircraft carriers, not that big, smaller, because it's been a while, and they were smaller back
Smaller
then.
than.
Yeah.
Okay, that's incredible. I mean, that's and so they go out to sea for how long before they come back into port? If they,
It depends on the scheduling and where they are, but in the Mediterranean, they would typically, first of all, you leave this, when I was in, it's changed a little bit. We would leave the U.S. and go for 9 months before we came back to the U.S.
Wow.
Now, you took you 5-6 days to cross the ocean, and then you would get into the Mediterranean, and then you would do maybe 2-3 weeks at sea, and then a week in port.
So
and sometimes they're a little bit longer, sometimes the sea was a little bit shorter, but basically I'm going to say, as I remember, 2 to 3 weeks at sea and a week or a week and a half in port.
So now, families, what do they do while they're, husbands, brothers, fathers? I mean, this is...
it's a very difficult time.
Yeah.
A very difficult time.
It's not just the men that serve, it's the families as well.
Absolutely. And in today's Navy, which is 17% female, there are families that have small children, and the female sailors have to have the same rotation as the males. And so instead of the mother taking care of the kids while the
Babies.
guy is gone, sometimes it's the opposite, and sometimes they get their parents involved, or they get some
What if
kind
they're
of
both serving? See?
and that happens too, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Now, did they can they serve both on the same ship, or the Sullivan Act? You can't do that. You have to be separate.
Think they don't do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they don't serve on the same ship.
Yeah. So if they're both serving, and they get the grandparents to come in to watch the kids, to be, guardians or whatever for the children.
I haven't experienced that.
That's,
but I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure it's
yeah,
out there.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So that's got to be really a harrowing time. I mean, 9 months.
Absolutely.
At sea. 9 months
Yeah.
at sea. What do you do with the sailor that's seasick? What do you do with that? Dramamine, I don't think is going to work, but I mean,
that's not an issue.
really?
Yeah.
Nobody gets seasick?
Yes, they do when there's bad weather,
Ugh.
but they typically learn how to deal with it. And if they really have it acutely, they tell them to take a walk.
Really? Because,
I've never known anybody that happened to.
really.
Yeah, on aircraft carriers, it just doesn't happen.
They're humongous. I know they are absolutely humongous, and they can pretty much be quite stable on
The
water.
aircraft carrier. Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But they do rock and roll sometimes.
But
yeah, if you hit a bad storm.
when you're in the North Atlantic,
Sure.
it's not going down the Mississippi. So that really can be hazardous. Really,
Yes.
truly. You really. When did you learn first that you wanted to be in the Navy? Let's go back to you. I mean, it's interesting because people want to know how do people get started in this? You join the Navy, but how old were you? Why? What were your father or grandparents or somebody in the family in the Navy?
My dad was in the Army in World War II. I had a cousin about 2 years older than me, 3 years older, who went in the Navy. And Dean and I used to communicate, and he would send me pictures and stuff about all the places he'd gone, and I thought that was pretty good. I have to admit I didn't do well in high school, so I was not college material.
Not a problem.
Although I did end up getting a college degree and a master's degree.
Look at that,
I had to
see?
do it later, and I used my GI Bill to do that,
That's okay.
which was a very good benefit.
That's good.
But I just wanted to get a job and get out of town and try something new.
Different.
And so I joined the Naval Reserve 6 days after I became 17 years old.
Wow, that's young.
Well, that's the earliest I could get in.
Wow, that's young.
And then, and I stayed for 31 years, and it was a great career. I started out and went to boot camp at Great Lakes, and I didn't go to A school. I just didn't have any desire to do that, and so I'm up for grabs as to what I'm going to do for a job. And today's Navy is totally different than that. You pretty much know what you're going to do before you leave the recruiting office.
Oh, they give you a career.
They do, yeah. But back then, they sent me to the fleet, and I ended up getting in an air wing office. Air wing is the planes that go aboard an aircraft carrier, and they have an air wing commander, and the air wing commander has his office, and I got assigned to that office. It was a small command, maybe 20 combined enlisted and officers, and they decided I would be a yeoman. Yeoman is administrative, clerk, captain's records, legal, all that kind of stuff. And it fit right in because I really enjoyed that. I ate that up, and that was a fun thing for me to do. I was lucky. I'm a good test taker, so I made my rate pretty fast.
Wow.
I became a chief when I was 27, and I was a chief for 1 year, and I got selected for warrant. And so I did my first 10 years enlisted, and my last 20 as an officer.
Wow, wow. And as I hear from one of my sons, that the one that's in the Navy, the Seabees, he said, Navy food is terrific.
Oh, yeah.
And
oh, yeah.
he loved it. He absolutely loved it. He was in the Navy for 13 years in the Seabees.
I was a Seabee.
And my other son was in the Army, two brothers, one's Army, one's Navy. And my husband was Navy Air Force. And he complained the MRIs that they were getting, or MREs, whatever, that the food is terrible. But the Navy always gave the best food. Always.
I never had complained about Navy food. I always liked it. There were things they did once in a while, but that happens at home.
Well,
now and then I get something I don't like much.
Surprise meatloaf or one of those.
Yeah.
Randy would say he was on an aircraft carrier.
Okay.
And I think it was the Eisenhower.
Oh, wow.
The Eisenhower, the Kennedy, one of the...
Those are pretty new.
Yeah, they were new. Nuclear, he said, the nuclear ones. And he said he could hear the planes coming in and the planes going out. And he said those kitchens were working 24 hours a day. And whenever he was hungry, he'd go down to get, messed on. The food was terrific.
Yep.
And David was complaining because he said, we didn't get any lobster or steak. He said, we just got these hot meals, whatever they were. But, Randy was in Iraq, putting down and building buildings and what the Seabees do.
Yes.
And putting, down the tarmac for, the planes to land. And David was military police. And he was guarding embassies in Guatemala, and he did 2 tours, and in Alexandria, Egypt. So he went in right after 9/11. We didn't even know that the boys joined. We had no idea. No idea that they joined, but they did. So, and David was in for 8 years, so military police.
They used to have a reserve Seabee battalion at Great Lakes.
Yeah.
And I was the personnel officer. Of course, that's what I got to be when I was an officer, of a Seabee battalion for 11 years. Well, between the battalion and the regiment, there were 2 battalions, one in Great Lakes and one in Glenview, and there was a regimental headquarters that supported those two battalions, and I went from the battalion to the regiment and back to battalion.
Before we got married, my husband was stationed out at Glenview.
Okay.
I mean, they've since closed it down or whatever, but that was the place that to go.
Sure.
And I think it was runway 350. It was giving everybody heart attacks because the planes would come in so low, right, rooftop. Just barely miss the rooftops.
Yeah. One of our Navy League councils is in Glenview. And it was formed when Glenview was still an active Naval Air Station.
Yeah.
But they're still active, and they still
the museum I know is there. It's wonderful.
And they do have a museum called Hangar 1, and that's I think they're independent, but the people that do it are all pretty much Navy leaders.
Yeah. They're very, very, very nice. Now, Great Lakes is. My father-in-law, whom I never met, but what I hear from my husband is he was stationed at Great Lakes during World War I, but everybody came down with some...
Oh, yes.
What was that?
Was it influenza?
the flu. Maybe that was
influenza.
What it was. Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah.
And
that was about 19, maybe about the time of World War I.
Yeah.
1918, something like that. Yeah.
And he said they were dog sick. They were really, and that his uncle, who was in the Seabees, and he contracted malaria. They had to ship him home. He was so sick, and they wound up over at Great Lakes in the hospital because they were just. I mean, he suffered terribly with malaria. It would just come on and go off and come on, and it was a terrible thing, just absolutely terrible. You have to be a pretty strong personality to be able to tolerate any type of military service. First of all, to be in so long.
Yeah.
And I congratulate Valerie. I do indeed. I mean, she served right along when you were serving.
Absolutely, and the wives are really important. And one of the things we do is a spouse appreciation breakfast.
Oh, nice.
They do that once a year, and they bring all the Navy spouses together, and we feed them and give them things. And
that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
She deserved 365 days a year, not one, 365.
And as we meet with them and find out other things we can do to help out, we do that as well.
That's good. Is the fact that the Navy League, that you do all of these things specifically for the Navy seabearing, initiation,
sea service personnel. We try to enhance the morale of the troops, and
that would be wonderful. That would really be wonderful. Everybody questioned why my son, who is in the Seabees, what is he doing in Iraq when there's sand, there's no ocean, and what's the Navy doing here,
They build things.
He was building things,
sure.
Absolutely. He was engineering, and he is by profession mechanical engineer.
Okay.
So
is he enlisted or officer?
Oh no, he was enlisted.
And what was his rating? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm just the mother. I have no idea.
Okay.
The mother.
Yeah.
But he was complaining that the sand fleas were so bad.
Sure.
That they were, his feet were all raw from the fleas. So what they were doing is taking the dog collars or cat collars, flea collars that you put on the animals, and he was putting it around his ankles in his shoes and socks, so that was able to kill the fleas. And
you don't think about things like that.
You don't think about things, but like I say, I'm just the mother, Sure. But people on the outside watching or listening in and see, they don't have any idea unless one of their husbands or loved ones are stationed overseas, and they have to live in that culture, in that lifestyle. They fed them good, but the point is that the elements were just kids from the suburbs in the United States, and that climate and area was totally, it's not like going to the beach, Ted.
Yes, right.
It's entirely different.
Sure.
So,
to say a little bit about what it's like.
Sure.
When I was doing these Mediterranean cruises, and I did 4 of them, 9 months at a time, there was no internet. And international telephone calls were really difficult. You had to go to a place, and then you had to put a request in and wait for a line to open up, and then it was and then it would cost you a fortune when you finally got the bill for the call. So if I got one phone call for that time, that was probably average.
Wow.
But today they have internet and FaceTime.
Yeah,
and,
well, you know,
and it makes things a little bit easier. Not a lot.
Well,
not a lot, but a little bit easier, I think.
Well, when the boys were going overseas, they were flying. You know, they didn't go directly. They were, you know, made stops wherever they had to make stops, and I think it was David, the Army. He flew to Shannon, Ireland, before he made his stop, and he said, "I can't talk long." He said, "There's a line here, immense line." He said, "I can only say a couple words. I'm okay. It was a good flight. We're going on." And he said, "I ate. And we're okay." All the questions mothers ask: "Did you eat? Are you warm? Are you okay? Are you sleeping?" He said, "I can't talk. I have to leave." He said, "There are guys all over here who just want to call home."
That used to happen when the aircraft carrier would come back from a 9-month cruise.
Yeah.
The phone company would set up phone booths on the pier.
Yeah.
And there would be 20 of them. Man, it would just be
phone bank. Sure, absolutely.
And in every one of those, they had a line of 20 or 30 people trying to get onto the phone.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Because, you know, you have all those people, and they want to call their families and tell them that they're safe and that they're glad to be back.
You know, when you're at sea, you don't have to worry about allergies or flying insects or bugs or whatever. But you know.
True, but ships have their hazards, especially aircraft carriers. Man, they got airplanes flying in and flying out, and they have fuel and ammunition and weapons and bombs, and a lot can go wrong. Some of those jobs are really hazardous. Mine wasn't. But still, you have to be really careful.
Well, Randy learned to be a fireman. Yeah, I said, a fireman?
We're all firemen on board a ship.
He said, you got to be a fireman on the ship. And he got a certificate for that. He got a certificate for heavy equipment. He got a certificate to move whatever he had to move, you know, material-wise. Any ordinances or whatever. So... a sailor is not just a sailor who, you know, goes fishing off the fantail. They don't do that.
Oh no! You work. I was just thinking the other day. I was talking to somebody, and we were talking about replenishing at sea. You know, aircraft carriers have only so much room.
Sure.
So, and they have all those people that they have to feed. That takes a lot of space to store all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so the supply officers put in these orders, and they load up this supply ship. And while they're at sea, the supply ship comes alongside. They throw lines over, and then they start moving cargo from that ship to this ship. And it's an all-hands evolution. Well, all lower-rated hands, and go to the hangar bay, and they help move boxes, and they move this stuff to the refrigerator, and that stuff to the dry stores, and that stuff, and they get this all figured out. I don't know how they do it, but somebody knows how they do it.
Well, they must have had some kind.
And they do it all in one day. They do it all in not even one day. It's a few hours because you can't be alongside. That's a dangerous thing in itself. Two ships sailing 100 yards apart.
One is the supply ship. So after it unloads its supply, is it totally bare, or does it just go on to its next call?
I think maybe some of each.
Oh,
some of each. Sometimes they unload it all, and they may have more than one ship to replenish, and you may be the last one. It's empty, and it goes back to resupply.
But the main ship then continues on its course. The
absolutely
supply ship just goes out.
Yeah, either goes to another ship or goes back to get replenished.
Yeah. That's too bad you don't have a DVD. We could see something like this. This would be really incredible. People love to see that. Do you remember the program Victory at Sea?
Sure.
I mean, that was, the public was able to see these men on the ships and
Sure.
the water, and that's really what you see. What you hear is one thing, but if you see it, you remember it. You really remember it, and that would be a good thing. When we have you on the program again, Ted, of which we will, do bring Valerie with. Absolutely.
There are many videos available like that.
We should have a portion so that we could see
Okay.
that. So, I mean, this is your first time coming, but we'll have you back, and that would be good if you could bring a video or DVD or whatever, and to see how this is transferred. People can hear that you're saying that, but the fact that they could see these ships on the water, and how this transportation
Sure.
of transferring goods from one ship to the other, how that's done. You really have to work together to be able to make this work. I mean, to lose
Absolutely.
any of that, I
Right,
mean,
right.
people will do without. So that
Sure.
that would be very interesting to do. So we definitely need you back. We definitely need you back. Now, again, we should really give your the email for the Lake County one. So if you want to give that,
It's www.lakecounty.nlus.org.
and it's all one word.
All one word.
Okay.
Yep. Until you get to .org.
Yes.
Yeah. I was going to tell you another thing that we're
Sure.
doing. On April the 6th, we're having the Regional Sea Perch Competition at Recruit Training Command. Sea Perch is a program by the Navy Research Organization, and it is an underwater robot. It's built out of PVC pipe and flotation devices and little motors, and it comes in a kit which you can buy online from the Navy Research Organization, and we try to put them into schools so the kids can learn how to build and operate these underwater robots.
Oh, how
and
interesting.
you do it in swimming pools, and that's why it's so great at Recruit Training Command, because they have 3 large swimming pools.
Wow.
And in one building, and it's really a great place. Last year we had 130 teams.
Wow.
From high schools, middle schools, and other organizations. I think there was one Cub Scout organization, but come together and then they compete. And if they win at Great Lakes, then they go to another competition, and eventually they have the very best students in Washington, D.C. at a national competition.
Oh, that's incredible.
yeah.
That's incredible. So evidently, these are very large robots or whatever.
No, they're
Well,
not like that.
2 feet, 3 feet,
Yeah,
whatever.
2 feet, 3 feet square. Yeah, they're not very big.
But it has to work.
Oh, absolutely. And
I mean-
they're on a tether. They're on a tether, and the kids
Yeah.
have a control box, and then they learn how to make them go up and down
Wow.
and backwards and forwards, and when you're underwater, it's a whole new world.
Oh, yeah, the water is
Yeah,
a whole
yeah.
new world, right.
So those kids get a real education in learning how to wire. They have to learn how to solder wires and hook these things up and make them work.
Make them
Yeah.
work.
So that's one of the things we do.
So you've got something coming up in January, which is just next month.
Our annual meeting.
2019, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
Anybody can go. All you do is buy a ticket. I wish I knew the website address.
well, if they get online, they'll be able to find out.
Hopefully they'll find out online.
Okay.
Yeah. Send me an email.
Okay. Send this gentleman an email.
Ted.rock@comcast.net.
Yeah.
See if my email box is full up tomorrow.
Okay.
But that's
Ted, ted.rock@comcast.net.
Yeah.
It sounds like a program, You've got an easy name to remember. It could have been Stone, but you got Rock or whatever. That's good. That's okay. That's okay. We won't quibble about names. That's all right. Not a problem. So, okay. And there's place for women in your organization. So
Absolutely.
we just want to say that.
Sure.
And can you come with knowing nothing or
You don't have to
everything?
know
or-
anything.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to know anything.
I mean, you know,
We'll train.
nautical,
we train.
anything,
We have this national
port,
organization.
starboard, whatever,
Yeah.
you know.
You don't need to know that.
Okay.
You'll probably learn it along the way because
Okay.
you'll hear people talk about that. But we have a national organization that's quite good. They do a lot of webinars, training things, and they're pretty well organized. We have committees for everything. I'm on the awards committee for the national organization.
Oh, nice.
And because Navy League does a lot of awards, not just the local things, but national awards.
You don't have to learn how to tie knots or anything?
No,
don't have tiny
no. That if you're in the
square
Navy, you
knots
have to learn how to do that.
That's what I'm
we're not-
talking about.
We're not in the Navy.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
all right, very good.
A couple of years ago, I got a call from someone on the staff of Admiral Michelle Howard, who at the time was a 4-star admiral.
Wow.
And she was the vice chief of naval operations. And this commander called me and said, I got your name off the website, and Admiral Howard would like to go to lunch with the Navy League. Could you arrange for maybe 4 people to go to lunch with her? I says, wow, yes, no problem doing that. I've never gone to lunch with a 4-star admiral, either before or since, but it was quite an honor. And during the course of the conversation, she told me that when she was a lieutenant commander, she got one of those big awards from the Navy League.
Really?
Like she had been singled, like they'll pick officer of the year for a command.
Okay.
And then it goes to the next command.
Yeah.
And the next command, and then it gets up to to DC.
And she won?
And she won that, yeah. And
that.
that's, I mean, she was on her way to getting 4 stars. I mean, it doesn't surprise me
Incredible.
she got that, but she didn't forget that
See?
Navy League had done a good thing for her. And so we had a nice lunch at the Port of Call at Great Lakes.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible.
You know, another thing we do that I'm really proud of is every Friday they have graduation at Great Lakes. Recruit Training Command has graduation, and every Friday, with a few exceptions, they graduate about 700 new recruits for the Navy. They give 6 awards each Friday, and they're sponsored by the various organizations: Navy League, Navy Club, USO, Military
Oh, the
Officers
USO,
Association,
yeah.
and a couple of other obscure organizations. But they each provide an award for these youngsters that have somehow gotten to the top of the cream of the crop.
Wow.
And Navy League is the only organization of those 6 that shows up every Friday with a representative to present that award personally. And I have a really nice group of about 10 active Navy League members that are available, and they volunteer and they show up when it's their turn and present those awards. And we've done that for several years now.
That's very important, and it's a good sign of encouragement and a sign of support and a sign of integrity that they are there to support. That's terrific.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really great. And that she remembered, that's what's getting me here, is that she remembered that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's an important award.
A 4-star admiral.
Yes.
Wow.
Huh? She gave me her coin. I have a
Oh my
have a
goodness.
4-star coin.
How
I
long
was
does
going to say,
Sure.
if anybody in the audience would like to go to graduation, they can go as our guest,
Oh, how
because
nice.
the RTC lets us bring people with us.
Oh,
and
that's nice.
you have to know in advance. So you have to schedule, let them know because security things and what
Yeah.
have you. But it's Friday morning. You have to be there at 7:30, and it's over about 11. But it's quite a ceremony. It's really a lot of fun.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
I attended one because it was my son's.
Okay.
And,
You went to his. Okay.
Sure.
If you
and
want to go again, I can make that happen.
I don't think I could go through that again. I know, but it was enormous. And my other son attended, and he was in his Army
Sure.
uniform.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Randy was in the Navy uniform.
Yeah.
And they took pictures and everything. It was really
Yeah.
really quite something.
Yeah.
A large graduating class, absolutely.
We often get brothers, and the older brother's already in, and
Yeah.
and he'll show up. And,
Yeah, the younger one, yeah.
and sometimes we get father sons.
That's really.
Yeah, it's a very moving.
Of course
series.
it is. It's
Yeah.
very emotional, very emotional. Yeah. And of course we're just mothers, we're just there. But we
Sure.
help along the way. So
Yeah.
but these programs that you have and the things that you do and the connections that you make as the lobbyists for the public, because you really are civilians. You're not
Right.
in there any longer. But you know your way around is very, very important. Very, very important.
And the national organization lets us know what's happening, what bills are in Congress,
Yeah.
what congressmen have been important in terms of starting a bill or supporting a bill, and so we know that kind of stuff, and so we can support that because of the information they feed to us.
Very, very important. Very interesting. I might just add that if you are interested, you are a civilian, that's just fine. Please do contact Ted E. Rock. I'm sorry, but it's just it sounds like a name, a band name or something.
Ted Rock. I love that name.
I love it.
And I'm a musician too.
You're a musician.
I am. I've played lots of things over the years. And
What we have there on the screen, www.lakecounty.nlus.org.
very good. Thank you. Yeah.
So I hope you've learned something this evening. I hope that you are interested. We like to bring interesting things to you, our viewers. And if you would like to be on the program, and you have something interesting that you feel others would like to know about, please let me know. And again, I'd like to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a healthy, happy New Year and happy holidays to all. And see you next week on North Shore Live, Cooper's Corner. Have a pleasant evening, a very safe week, and a very, very Merry Christmas. And I want to thank Ted and his lovely wife, Valerie, for coming. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Good evening.